Welcome to the Dan Norton Show. It is Saturday, May 17th, 2025. Sorry, I got here a couple minutes late, but it's good to see there are already some people in the chat. I see Darwin is here, and he says he is in the queue. He wants to talk about Social Security. All right, great. I'm glad to have a caller so early. I will let you in shortly. Let me just say a few things before I do that. So we had a show a few days ago, and we had a interruption partway through it, which um, maybe some of you were here for that, but it was unfortunate. However, I was able to cut out the worst part of it, and I re-uploaded the stream. So it's not in the live section of the channel since I re-uploaded it later after doing some editing. It now appears in the video section on my channel. So that's where you can find it. And I also fixed the issue on Zoom that led to the problem. I now have it set up so that uh, the participants can only activate the video if I first allow it. So I didn't have that setting enabled last time, um, which led to the problem. So I apologize about that, but we've got it fixed now. So that should not happen going forward. Um, and I guess I'll only let someone join video if I already know the person or I'm confident that it's not going to be a problem. I guess yeah. So I think that should solve the issue. All right. I I think that was, I don't think there's anything else I want to say or I need to say right now at the beginning. I made a few notes about what I've been reading recently, and but I can get to that later. I think maybe it's better to just go right to Darwin's call. He's tried to call in a couple times before, but I want to make sure I get to his call this time. So let me take his call. And anyone else who wants to call in, there is a instruction in the chat. It's pinned. So all you need. Oops, why am I? Sorry, I need to mute something on my end. I was getting an echo. So if anyone wants to call in, I've pinned the instructions in the chat. It's very easy. All you have to do is click on that link to Zoom. And I don't even think you need a Zoom account to use Zoom. You just click that link, or if you want to dial in by phone, there's also a phone number there, 669-444-9171. Then you'll be prompted to enter a meeting ID, which is 862-7640-6104, pound sign. And then you'll press pound sign once more, and that'll get you into the waiting room. I also realized today that you can do a one-click uh, dial. So if you do this on your phone, at least on my iPhone, when I tested it this morning, um, there is a way to just do a one click. So I guess the phone number and the meeting ID all gets entered at once, and then all you have to do after that is hit the pound sign again to get in the waiting room. So that's the call-in instructions, and I invite anyone to ask questions, make comments while right now and while I'm taking this call. And then once the call is over, I'm not sure how long it'll be, but when it ends, I will have material to engage with once I come back to the chat. I'm not always looking at chats, especially during a call. Um, so I'm usually just focused on the call when it's happening. But after that, I'm going to look back at the chat and it would be great if there was some material there that I could engage with because I'm primarily here to engage with all of you out there. So you all supply the content. That's what I said in the and I titled this stream. I said you bring the topics. Um, I have a few things that I might talk about each time, but it's a lot of it is generated by the topics you all bring up, and that's the goal here. So I definitely encourage people participating in chat. Also, if you like the stream, I'd appreciate it if you give it a like, help it in the algorithm, and any subscriptions are also definitely appreciated. I've been happy to see the inscription subscriptions increasing. Got a few people over the last few days. All right, so now let me go to Darwin's call. Okay, I'm going to admit. All right, Darwin, you
Hey, can
are
you hear me?
here. Yes, I can.
Great. Sorry you were Zoom bombed the other day. That's pretty terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, that was pretty crazy. It was the first time something like that had ever happened. Um, yeah, so
It was
for
actually pretty frequent during the pandemic. So people would just like post Zoom links to colleges and then trolls would go on and disrupt it. I guess if you have nothing better to do, it would entertain some people.
yeah, I don't know if this was targeted, like if this person knew me at all and had a specific thing out for me and he was trying to screw up my stream, or if it was just totally random. But in any case, it was yeah, definitely uh, an unpleasant moment.
Yeah.
So if anyone, were you there yesterday or the last stream when that happened, or did you just hear about it
I
afterwards?
didn't catch it. I didn't catch it, but I'm glad like on your YouTube channel you can access the live shows. But I think you edited that out. So good job on your part.
Yeah, and there's actually even a way to edit the very same stream link so that you don't even have to re-upload it into a new section of the channel. So it could still be at the original link, but in order to do that, YouTube has to process the video after the stream
Mhm.
ends, and I didn't want to take a chance on getting like a channel strike or something, or having my channel taken down after the YouTube's automated processing system completed its processing. It was processing it for like hours after the stream ended, which I think is unusual. I don't think it usually takes as long as it was taking. So maybe something was triggering the security system and YouTube's
Mhm.
processing check. So I didn't wait for it to stop processing. I just I deleted the video and well, I did save a prior version of it, so I was able to clip out the offensive part and download that and then edit that and then re-upload that part that edited video to the non-live section of my channel. But even after I did all that, the original stream was still processing, and at a certain point, I just said I'm not going to take a chance. I'm just going to delete it. Um, so, anyways, yeah, I'm glad that's behind us, and that I think I've figured out a safer way going forward, so we don't have that kind of problem.
Yeah,
But
sounds good.
anyways, thanks for calling in. And you said you wanted to talk about Social Security?
Yeah, so I think I told you this before, but I first discovered your channel by viewing the Majority Report, and I have very similar views to Sam Seder on that Social Security has been the most successful anti-poverty program in the United States and has reliably given benefits for the past, whatever, 85 years until Doge attempted to destroy it. So I was just wondering, I know from your objectivist standpoint, you view it as theft. Could you elaborate on that? And do you dispute that it's successful, or do you think there's a better option?
Okay. I think it's a violation of rights. Theft, I'm not sure I would use that term because that implies it's against the law. But this is, I mean, you might call it legalized theft, um, or legalized stealing, but that's kind of a contradiction in terms. It's like by definition, you might
Hmm.
say it's not stealing or theft if this has been made legal. But I think the issue is it's an inappropriate law on my view. I mean, slavery was once legal at a certain point, but I don't think that that means it's okay. I think it's a bad law. Certain laws are bad and they should be repealed because they violate people's rights, or in other words, they involve initiating force against people. And there are many laws that do that. Taxes, all tax laws, laws that enable taxes do that. And that includes the Constitution, by
Hmm.
the way. So I think that's one of the flaws of the Constitution. I think the Constitution is a great document, the
Hmm.
Constitution of the United States, but I do think it has flaws. One of them being that it gives Congress the power to tax. And the reason I oppose that is because it means that the government can initiate force against people. And I think the initiation of force is wrong, as opposed to using force in retaliation. So you can use force in self-defense. That's good. But starting the use of force against someone, saying you have to give me your money or else I'm going to shoot you, or I'm going to put you in handcuffs, I'm going to throw you in jail. And Social Security is a program that is based on the initiation of force. If you don't pay your taxes to fund the system, you will ultimately be hauled off to jail. And I think that's wrong. I don't think there's any um, right for someone else. It doesn't matter if it's one person, if it's a majority of millions of people. There's certain things which you cannot properly do in a society. Like you can't vote someone to death because you don't like his opinions. We have something like freedom of speech. So even if a majority disagrees with you, we don't have mob rule, or at least that was that's one of the ideas that this country is founded on. I think that just because you have a majority that wants something, that doesn't make it okay to do. And I think taking away someone's property without their consent is one of those things that should not be subject to a vote. It doesn't matter if, millions of people, a majority want it. It's still a violation of their rights. But let me just pause there.
Yeah, but
And
yeah, sure. So I see where you're coming from, but this type of coercion isn't unique to taxation. So in order to you get the benefits of your taxes going to public schools, so your children can go to the public school in your local district, you have to have a series of vaccinations, like against measles, mumps, rubella, polio. So do you believe that's coercion as well, or do you believe that when we're in society, we have obligations to others and we enter into a social contract?
vaccines, I think maybe it's appropriate, but if it is, it would have to be appropriate because someone is a vector. I think that's the term that's sometimes used, a vector for spreading
Hmm.
diseases. Like if you're, classic example, Typhoid Mary, I think it's justified to quarantine someone like that because she is a physical threat to other individuals. So, if you are a physical threat, whether because of something at your that you're at fault for or not, like you could be a murderer, and that's much worse than someone like Typhoid Mary who might unknowingly be a threat to other people. But nevertheless, if she is a threat to other people, a physical threat, then I think for that reason, she can be quarantined. And if you need a vaccine in order to make yourself not a threat to other people, I don't know if that's the case, but if that's the case, then I think it could be appropriate to insist that someone is vaccinated if they want to go into certain environments. Like if you run a school now, public education, that's so I don't think there should be public education. It should be private, and I think maybe it should be left up to the schools as a private business. Like if you're going to come to this school, then you have to have certain vaccinations, and maybe other schools have different rules, or maybe they think, okay, maybe you don't need this certain vaccination, but you need this other one because this other one is more contagious, it's more fatal. So in a free market, I think different businesses, different individuals are going to have different rules. But there could be cases where it is appropriate for the government, I guess, to mandate vaccines if someone is just so contagious or if they have some disease that's just so fatal that it doesn't matter where they go, they're clearly a threat. Like Typhoid Mary, I think it would be appropriate for the government to quarantine someone like that.
Yeah. So putting aside whether it violates rights or not, let's look at it through a lens of it's a mandatory insurance program that essentially prevents 22 million Americans from entering at or below the poverty level. So if that's the case, I don't think there's a free, I mean, it is the case. I don't know if there's a better free market solution. So I think I don't know how old you are, that 401ks have been an absolute catastrophe. So if you're entering retirement age around a drop in the market, say you're retiring in 2008 and you have to take mandatory withdrawals, you could be essentially, put into an immiserated state just by not having guaranteed money. So yeah, that's the fact is that it keeps 22 million Americans out of poverty, and it also represents the majority of income for 2/3 of our seniors. So it represents 50 to 100% of the income for those 2/3 of retirees.
Okay. Just by the way, let's see. It looked like, oh, maybe this person had gone. I saw someone enter the waiting room a few minutes ago,
Yeah,
but
feel free to end the conversation when you feel like it's good.
okay. Yeah, I wasn't about to end it. I just wanted to let the other person know that I was aware that he tried to call in, but it looks like he hung up because I don't see him anymore. Okay, but if anyone else does want to come in, feel free to dial in. You don't have to wait till I end this call. It's fine to jump on in the middle of the call. That might actually be a good thing. Maybe it might make for a smoother transition. Um, but in just because you come in, that doesn't mean I'm going to take your call immediately. I'll just see how the current call is going. I'm not sure how long it's going to go, but feel free to jump in at any time. Let me just take a quick look at the chat. Okay, I don't see any chats coming in. Um, so I'm glad I have Darwin on the line. Okay, so let me reply to that last segment. So one issue you raised is a factual claim about 2/3 of people are kept out of poverty. Or something like that. And I've heard Sam Seder say that a number of times. So I think people would be much wealthier on the whole if there were freedom, and we can talk more about why that is. I guess very briefly, I'll just say that um, reason or the human mind is the basic source of wealth. It's because we're human beings that we can produce wealth as opposed to other species like dogs and cats and fish who just they go through the same cycle generation after generation for hundreds of thousands of years or millions of years, and their state doesn't really change. Whereas human beings, we can progress from the cave to the skyscraper because we have a different sort of nature. We have a conceptual faculty, a rational faculty, which enables us to um, do amazing things like build skyscrapers and connect and the internet and have Zoom calls like we're doing right now over thousands of miles. However, that ability to use your mind and benefit from it is destroyed if you are subject to force. So reason and force are opposites. And when you have, to the extent, there are degrees here. So to the extent that you are subject to force, you can't use your reasoning capacity or benefit from it. So if you have a totalitarian society, which entirely constrains your ability to use your own reason and act in accordance with your own reason, then that also diminishes your ability to flourish, to succeed in life, to produce wealth, and you have a very poor society like the Soviet Union, where you have famines and millions of people dying, or North Korea, and you have people who, they hate it so much they'll risk their lives. They'll try to immigrate to get out of the country. They'll try to immigrate to a freer place, even if it means breaking some laws like we have today in the United States. We have lots of illegal immigrants, but I think that's because they value America so much, that they're willing to risk breaking a law to get here, because I think the freedom and opportunity we have is so much better. Unfortunately, I think it is much too hard now to immigrate legally. I think it should be much easier than it is. But in any case, my point is just that to the extent you are subject to force or coercion, you're worse off, and societies as a whole are worse off. And I think there's a massive amount of coercion involved with a program like Social Security or Medicare or public education. And if we were not subject to that sort of coercion via taxes, we would be able to do much, much better. We would produce our reason would be much freer to benefit us through much greater wealth. So I think poverty would be much less if we didn't have Social Security. There's also a point about absolute versus relative poverty. If you want to talk about people in like sub-Saharan Africa who live on a couple dollars a day or something, that is absolute poverty, as opposed to, poor people in the United States, in quotes, who might have, iPhones, air conditioning, cars, but because they're not as wealthy as, some other people, then we say they're poor. I'm not sure that's really an objective way to look at the situation, but I'll stop there and throw it back to you.
Yeah. So when you say if there were no Social Security, there would be less poverty, do you think actually that whatever the 6.2% FICA tax on all of the paychecks is what's keeping people in poverty? So the median American is living paycheck to paycheck, and 6.2% not going to FICA is not going to change that reality. So I don't know where you're getting the idea that no Social Security would equal less poverty, when it's been shown. There have been studies that there's a market drop in poverty before and after the expansion of Medicare. Social Security. So in like the 60s, the poverty level was around 30%, and now it's at 10%, and that's mostly due to the expansion of Social Security. So that's the first point, is I don't think there's a free market solution. And secondly, when you say that it's coercive, we have several laws in which you forego rights for the greater good. So we have seatbelt laws and helmet laws. You're required to wear a seatbelt if you drive, so you don't become a projectile when you crash into something and your inertia propels you like a missile into somebody else. We have jury service. We have compulsory education. We have conscription. We have zoning laws. We have building laws. So at what point are you not okay with this coercion?
Okay. I'm just taking some notes over here. Um, so first, so my point is, maybe I'm taking a broader view when I say without Social Security, there would be less poverty. I'm thinking more in terms of without government coercion, including Social Security, there would be less poverty. But there are many ways in which the government coerces us. As I mentioned, like there are taxes that support all kinds of programs. I mean, the biggest ones are Social Security, Medicare, but there's also public education. But these are trillions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. So if you add up all that, and then you imagine all that money is not coercively taken from some and redistributed, then I think we're much better off. I'm not just making the narrow point, like if we got rid of this one program, then everything would be better. I mean, I think it would be better, but not as good as if we were to get rid of coercion entirely. I think then we would be even more better. Um,
Hmm.
but
May I
to
respond to that?
yeah, sure.
Yeah. So are you aware of, do you know what the Great Compression is?
No.
So it's a time period in the United States in which you had the highest growth rate for the middle class. And it corresponded to a time where the highest marginal tax rates were around 90%. So every dollar at that time above $300,000 or so was taxed at 90%. So what you're saying is that we had less coercion, fewer taxes, um, poverty would decrease. We actually have a counterfactual during this time period where you had the highest marginal tax rates and the greatest rate of growth of the middle class.
Okay. Well, I do know many claims are often made that if I looked into them, I might have a different view of them. I like one that's commonly made is that the uh, wealth of workers is stagnating like over the last few decades. Um, but that's actually, or standard of living is stagnated, and generations prior to this one are not as well off. Um, or sorry, the present generation is not as well off as prior generations. I think I said that wrong at first. But this is a claim which I think is incorrect. Euron Brook, who I don't know if you've heard of him, but he's also an objectivist who he does a show, and he's debunked some of that claim in particular, um, or the claim like that the 50s was this golden era and they had a better standard of living, and it was easier to get a house. And he's talked about how the houses you could have, they didn't have, I don't know if it was like washers and dryers or air conditioning, or they were much smaller.
Yeah, I just want to put the caveat in that it wasn't like amazing for everybody. Of course, we had Jim Crow laws, so a lot of black people were excluded from the economic benefits at the time. But please
So
continue.
I'm not sure exactly what period you're referring to. I mean, I'd be curious though. Like you mentioned Great Compression, like what
Yeah, I think it's
years?
under the Eisenhower administration mostly.
Okay. Yeah, so that's actually the period that Euron Brook was talking about specifically in a video, I don't know, maybe a couple of weeks or so ago. So you might be interested in checking that out. I don't have all the details he has. I haven't looked into it as thoroughly. I just heard his show, but I do know that there are often claims made about the history of the U.S., which I would likely disagree with if I looked into it more. Maybe this is one of them. But I can't really speak from firsthand knowledge about the data. I'm just giving a reference. I can talk more about like the general philosophy. Like, would it make sense to think that the more you subject people to coercion, the better off people are going to be? And I don't think that makes sense. And I've talked about that a little bit already here, and we could talk about it some more. But I think we can see that trend. I mean, I have at least a general knowledge of history, where I can look at contrasts like East Germany versus West Germany, or the Eastern Bloc for those versus the Western Bloc, or North Korea versus South Korea, or the United States versus the rest of the world. I think in general there's a correlation between more freedom and more prosperity, and I think there's a reason for that, which I've explained about, or to some extent, about how you need to have freedom for reason to function. And if you don't have freedom, then reason doesn't function, and there's a gradual diminution of wealth. Now, you can get some short range benefit for, some isolated population. Like if someone steals from me, if someone mugs me on the street and and maybe this is a poor person, well, now that poor person might not be poor anymore if he somehow gets access to my bank account. But is the solution then to, have a society where people can go around mugging each other? I think if you look at the large scale, that's not a good policy, and it's a violation of rights. It's immoral, I think, for one thing, but also on a larger scale, um, it leads to stagnation and actually retrogression. when a society stops protecting individual rights. Now, it was not to say there aren't isolated cases. Like maybe the person who stole from me, his life is much better. But if you look at a bigger picture, I think it's much worse. But let me pause there.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I want to talk more about basically. I think you touched upon this, but over time you've seen the decoupling of wages from profits that have been produced by the workers. So the delta, so those are supposed to march along in lockstep in a free market. The worker is supposed to get the fruits of their labor, but you've seen a delta between wages and profits. So is it not right to basically tax corporations more or increase the corporate tax rate so that you can drop the delta between the wages and the profits? And I mean, that's one confiscatory way. The other way is to, increase the minimum wage of workers or increase, basically limit the profits of the company. So why do you think there's been a decoupling of wages from profits over time?
Okay, so first of all, I don't know that there has been. I'm not denying that there has been, but I don't know firsthand that there has been. And this is one of the claims. Like, there's so much that I just can't take things at face value that people report because just so many times I have found out that if I look into something more, or someone else who I trust, like you're on Brook, if he looks into something, he will end up concluding actually the basic facts aren't really as they've been presented. So I'm not going to take this at face value. I would want to verify it independently. But I will say that I don't think it's appropriate. I don't think it's the proper purpose of government to ensure that there's an alignment or correlation between wages of like low-level workers at a company and then the profits that that company is making or whatever, or the salary that the CEO gets. I think that should all be entirely determined by the free market, and the government has no business stepping in. So if you don't like something about a company, you're free to boycott it as an outsider. You don't have to do business with that company. If you don't like the ratio of CEO pay to the workers on the assembly line, for instance, you don't have to do business with them. You can take your business elsewhere. But I don't think it's right to use force to coerce the company to act in a different way. I just
Well,
want to
I'm saying
acknowledge,
there's a very easy
just one
way.
second.
Yeah.
I see that someone else has entered the waiting room. Martin S. I don't know if you have participated. I don't see you in the chat unless you have a different screen name in the chat. But I just want to let you know I did see your call. I'm going to stick with this call for a bit more. I'm not sure how long, but I do see you're there. So if you're patient, maybe I'll get to your call, Martin. Actually, if you could, if you don't mind, Martin, saying who you are in the chats, I like to see people both in the YouTube chats as well as Zoom, so I can get a little better idea of who they are. Um, so if you don't mind saying something in the chat, I'd appreciate that. Okay, go ahead, Darwin. You were going to say something?
No, I just I'll let's go for like 2 more minutes. I want to wrap up to let Martin have a chance.
Okay.
But I mean, this is what I was referencing is the decoupling of median wages from productivity. So if you look up that phrase, you'll be able to find a lot of peer-reviewed literature about the dynamic. But you said it's not the place of the federal government to, equalize or maintain a ratio. But what I'm saying is that we can very easily claw some of that money back. I view it as stolen labor, stolen wages. So you can basically have the highest earners pay, in the progressive tax bracket, however many dollars above $1 million you make in income can be taxed at a higher rate than the previous money. And so I don't think it's immoral to be rich in general, but the thing is, when you're so wealthy, you have disproportionate power in the United States. So Elon Musk just by dint of him being a billionaire, can go in, set up Doge, and wreck the administrative state while not actually saving money, just because he's wealthy. So that's the reason why income inequality is bad. Not that it's bad to be a rich person; it just gives you disproportionate power.
Okay. Well, on that particular point, that reminds me of a debate I had a couple shows ago. And I said, if you think money is power, then you can try this. Try to change my ideas by giving me money. Like, I have a Patreon account, I have a PayPal account. If you think you can get me to, for example, start promoting socialism or communism by giving me $10,000, I invite you to do it. See if it works. So
Yeah, sure,
anyone who
but you're
wants
not
to,
in you're not in Congress. Like there's a perfect correlation between the super PAC or the entity that pays Congress people and the direction in which they vote. So for instance, like you wouldn't find a person who gets paid by APAC voting against funding Israel. So it's not people are influenced by money. I'm glad that you're principled, but people in Congress certainly aren't.
okay. Well, I think regardless of your position, like if I was in Congress, let's say I was in Congress, I still don't think you could influence me with money. And I invite anyone out there who wants to test this. Give me $1 billion. See if you get me to promote communism or
Sure, but I,
socialism.
I, I, I think you would agree that people who are paid by the housing lobbies are not trying to build affordable housing in their districts. This is, I mean, this can be empirically tested. So do you
Uh,
think super PACs don't have influence on Congress members?
I don't know enough about that. I'm not really one who pays much attention to the nitty gritty of current politics. So I know there are lobbyists. I think many of them, but I think part of the problem there is that we have too many regulations. And if we didn't have, if a government didn't have the powers it has, if it were restricted to simply the three functions that I think it should have, the police, military, and courts, I think there would be much less lobbying. Like you wouldn't have all these regulatory agencies, all the alphabet agencies, FDA, SEC, FAA, so on. All these regulatory bodies, I guess they could be open to bribery, but I don't think those agencies should exist in the first place. So there would be far fewer people to bribe if the government were, if its role were restricted to those three basic functions. And actually, if everyone's eyes were just on those three, maybe it'd be much harder for people to get away with corruption like bribery because there's much less to look at. But if you have a massive behemoth-sized government, actually, I heard with like Bernie Madoff, people were tipping off the SEC that he was engaged in fraud. But I guess they were so busy looking over everybody else's back, eh, regulating people. Whereas if they were restricting themselves to just pursuing actual fraudsters, then they would have been more likely to, catch the criminals like Madoff. But because they're so dispersed in what they're doing, because they're regulating people who should be innocent until proven guilty, they don't catch the people who are actually doing the crime. So I think if we had a massively scaled back government, in all the focus, both of the government and the public monitoring the government, watchdogs, it would be much less likely that people would get away with bribery and corruption in government.
Okay, we can have a conversation about the three-letter administrations later because I'm certainly glad we have a Food and Drug Administration to make sure that the pharmaceuticals that one may take are not adulterated. But yeah, we'll agree to disagree. So thanks as
Sure.
always for taking my call, Dan.
Yeah. Thanks for
I
calling
hope
in,
you make it
Darwin.
to the 1,000 subscriber mark so you can get monetization.
I appreciate that very much. Yeah, yeah. Anyone who wants to help out with that, I definitely appreciate it. Because once I get to 1,000 subscribers, I can apply to YouTube to have my channel monetized, and then I can do things like super chats, and I can start making this channel self-sustaining. Right now, I'm doing other jobs, in order to fund my time that I spend on this, but I would love to be able to just do this. So I appreciate the plug, Darwin. Thanks a lot.
All right, Dan. We'll see if people take up your request to get bribed. Good luck.
All right.
All
Have a
right,
great
see ya.
day. Okay. All right. That was good. Glad he got to call in because I know he was trying for a few shows there, and I wasn't able to take his call before, but he jumped in the queue early today, and that definitely helped. Um, I see two more people have entered the waiting room. Let me take a look at, oh, well, it looks like Martin came back, Martin S., and then another person who goes by the name Shell Shock. Okay, so I see both of you. And let me just look back at the chat to see what's new there. I see Adam Schmitz has been making a few comments. Um, Let me just read through some of these. And depending on how the calls go, I don't know if maybe I should spend a little time on these chats because I think some of these chats from Adam came in before the callers showed up in the waiting room. So yeah, let me read through these chats and see if I have anything to say on them now, and then I'll come back to the call room. Just got to take a sip of water here. Thanks everyone for being here, by the way. I see several people watching, some people in the chats. Appreciate any likes on the stream and any new subscribers. All right, Adam Schmitz. I think I've seen your name somewhere before, Adam. I'm not sure if it was on Facebook or where, but welcome. You say, any thoughts on Nicholas Provenzo's article on Andrew Bernstein? No, because I haven't read it. Maybe I will later. I did see the article, or at least I read like a couple paragraphs of it. I think, but I just saw people linking to it. I saw a couple of people on Facebook link to it, but I haven't read it yet. So maybe I should read it later, and I'll have something to say on it. But I can say that unfortunately, um, I'm uh, I'm displeased with what I've seen from Andrew Bernstein in the last maybe few years. I think he's too much on the Trump train. Uh, so that's I think that's been unfortunate. And I take it that Nicholas Provenzo's article is critiquing Andrew Bernstein, at least partly about his support for the Trump for Trump. So maybe I would at least broadly be in sympathy with Provenzo's article. I'm certainly anti-Trump myself, um, especially given something like January 6th, his election denialism and his I think he helped incite the attack on the Capitol. And I mean, there's a million other things too, but that I I, I don't think you can. I don't see how you can be an objectivist and actually like the guy, as opposed to seeing him as a lesser of evils. I don't even see him as a lesser of evils. Um, like in this last election, I didn't vote for either candidate actually, either Trump or Harris. But if I had to rank them, I don't see Trump as a lesser evil. Um, Given I think his war on truth, I think he just doesn't care about the truth, and um, and he's kind of led a movement that of people who I think are not concerned with the truth. Um, and I think it has many bad consequences, uh, like January 6th. Um, okay. Adam Schmitz, then he says, no one living in America in 2025 is living in poverty. I guess that's a reply to the last call. And the purpose of the government is not to provide economic benefits to individuals. Right. I agree with that. The purpose of government is just to protect people from force, from the initiation of force by either domestic criminals, that's what the police are for, or from foreign threats, that's what the military is for. And in the court system to peacefully settle disputes between citizens so that they don't have to resort to force to resolve their disputes. And then Adam Schmitz says, so post World War II, when we were the only game in town, I guess that's also trying to get a response to the last call about the era that the caller was referring to. What did he call it? Compression something? The 1950s. Anyway, that's um, and then Adam says blame the gold standard for that one. Also, we aren't in a free market. Right. We've never had a purely free market. I think it was a more free market back in the late 19th century before the massive growth of the government through the New Deal, the Federal Reserve System, which was before the New Deal, and I think helped lead to the Great Depression. Um, that's part of the history that I think is often distorted. People blame capitalism for the Depression, but there was a government intervention before the Great Depression, which I think led up to the stock market crash. Um, in particular, the role of the Federal Reserve. Um, I've talked about that a little in the past, but maybe I should talk about it some more at some point. And then all these regulations, all these alphabet agencies, so have existed for many decades. So yeah, we're definitely not in a free market. Godzilla, welcome. You say new subscriber here. Hope you guys have had a great day so far. Going pretty well here. I like streaming. I really enjoy streaming, so I enjoy days when I do that. I was thinking maybe I should. This week might be a little different on the schedule because typically I stream on Wednesday and Saturday afternoons. And this coming Wednesday, 3 days from now or 4 days from now, I have an appointment in the afternoon, but it's kind of late afternoon, so I'm not sure if it's going to interfere with my normal streaming time. I was thinking about maybe doing Tuesday instead of Wednesday this week, but I'm not sure about that. I might stick to Wednesday at the usual time. We'll see. But if you are subscribed, you'll get a notification of the exact time I get live. I go live. So glad to have you as a new subscriber, Godzilla. Um, I see you got a matching avatar. Looks like is that a Godzilla in your avatar, or maybe that's something else? I'm not sure. Anyways, welcome to the channel. Then there's another from Adam Schmitz. Why is it the higher earners' responsibility to provide for everyone else? Um, okay, good question. All right, then I see some chats here from Diego. The term influence is too broad and wishy-washy to have any rational purpose. Anything can influence anyone, really. Take the calls. They are more entertaining, says Diego. Okay, let me see if I still got uh, two people in the waiting room, but it looks like one of them might have changed the screen name. I see Meghann Ribbens and Martin S. in there. Before it was Shell Shock. I think that someone by the name of Shell Shock was in there. I don't know if that person dropped out or if that person is Meghann and Meghann just changed her name. But Megann's been on here before. Actually, she appeared in the title of the stream she was on because I think that was the main event of that stream was when Meghann called in. But nice to see her back. So I'm getting close to the end of the new chats. Let me just finish in the chat room. By the way, Diego, I did find some more information in a bookmark on my computer as to the video that I had emailed you about. So maybe that will help to track down the video, but I can email you later about that. So that's just kind of a private thing. Diego knows what I'm talking about, but I think I'll e email you later about that. Then Adam says, I'm active on your on show and on Facebook. Okay, yeah, maybe I've seen you in one or both of those places because I'm also active on both of those places. Um, Maribens, who is Meghann Ribbens, um, she says Darwin's comment about the FDA really triggered me. He didn't say anything malevolent, but a lot of people don't know what the FDA actually does. Yeah, you're a scientist, and so you might have, you must have a lot, you must know a lot more about that than I do. I would guess you do about like the regulations you face. Um, and maybe it'd be good to have you on here when Darwin, or maybe like engaging with Darwin. Actually, I could host a debate if I wanted because I can have more than one person on Zoom at the same time. And it might be nice to have you on there if Darwin wants to call back in and discuss the FDA. And if you happen to be here, then maybe I could also bring you on and you could engage in that discussion as well, if you like. Mark Thomas asks Megan, what does the FDA do? Um, and then, okay, maybe. Oh, Megan says she has not changed her name, so I guess the shell shock person left. Um, okay. All right. I think I'm going to pause there and go back to the phone lines. And let me just make a note here of where I left off. So that was I'm up to the comment from Adam at 1:51 Pacific time. Okay, let me go back to the phones. All right, so I see Martin S. in the waiting room, and I don't know if you're also in the YouTube chat, but I guess I'll take a chance here. But there's not going to be video, at least not at first. Um, so okay, I just admitted Martin into the call. Hello, Martin. You are muted. Uh, you are. Oh, do I have to ask you to unmute, or can you unmute yourself? Maybe Darwin didn't have to. I didn't have to ask Darwin to unmute, but maybe that's because he called in. All right, that was the same person that interrupted the last stream. That was the reason I had to re-upload the video. So I really apologize for that. I don't know why that happened. I did not. I don't think I let the person. I don't remember pressing a button that says. I said ask to unmute. That's what I think I pressed. Which is not ask to. Oh, I think I see. Maybe this is the issue. Okay. Um, so there's an option that says allow participants to start video, and I had that unchecked um, on when I started Zoom, but it looks like maybe I have to uncheck that for every caller or for every new call I take. I have to uncheck start video, or else the default is just it allows the participant to start the video. Okay, I think that might be the issue. So just unchecking start video at the beginning of the Zoom meeting, it doesn't preserve that for the entire Zoom meeting. It only preserves that for each call that occurs. Um, and I have to uncheck start video every time there's a new caller. I think that's the only thing I can think of. I don't know what else would be the issue. Um, so I'm sorry about this. There's a um, all right. Well, it's giving me Zoom is giving me an option to report this. So I'll do this quicker than last time. Last time there was a delay of like 25 minutes. I was dealing with this. But now that this has happened once, I think I can take care of this much quicker. Um, Let me just submit this report. Uh, okay. So this person changed his name. Last time it was Perel, and this time it's Martin S. I did submit a report to Zoom um, after the stream ended last time, and I submitted a screenshot of this this person who uh, tried to bomb this stream with his pornography. So maybe Zoom can identify the IP of this person, or maybe it has other ways of identifying. Um, but anyways, I I am trying on the back end to do everything I can to prevent this kind of thing. But there's a learning curve here. Um, and I guess each stream should become safer um, than the last. I guess well, okay. I think enough on that. All right. So I'm submitting this report about Martin S. or whatever the person's name is. I guess if he changes it every time, um, I don't really know what the name is, but I'm just going to say offensive, illegal, or abusive. Include desktop screenshots. Um, and submit. Submit. Okay, I just submitted the report, and I'll get a follow-up from Zoom's trust and safety team um, later, and then I'll be able to submit a screenshot, and hopefully they can track this person down and punish them. Maybe YouTube can also punish this person. Hopefully, maybe the police could also punish this person. That would be good. Um, Maybe punish this person, throw this person in jail, maybe, uh, um, or fine this person, do something. Um, but this has got to stop. Okay, so I just checked the part where it gives me an option to uncheck start video for the participants. So now participants should not be able to start video. And I got to remember for every single caller, I have to check that, I guess. Okay. Okay. Let me see if my sound is coming through. All right. Thanks for your patience. I think maybe it was like last time he was on screen for a few seconds. But it took me a while to find out like where do I have to look to remove him. So uh, oh, there also I found out there's a way for me to chat with people in the waiting room. So that was something last time I had trouble figuring out if there was a way to do it, but there is a way to do that. Maybe I should do that and or have the person also say something in the YouTube chat as a additional screening measure. But I would like not to have to do that, like not to have to chat with someone before they come on the call, but I just don't want their video showing up. If it's just audio, I think I can mute that quicker. Um, uh, but all right. Okay, let me get back to normal things. All right, is Megan still in the oh, it looks like maybe Megan dropped out. Oh no, it says two participants. Okay. All right, I'm going to Megan's call. Now Megan I'm confident about because I she's been here before, so um but anyways, let me admit her. And she's also been participating in the chat. So, okay. It says joining. Megan is connected to audio. Hello, Megan.
Hey Dan, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Welcome.
All right, I'll leave my video off just
Well,
because of the
I don't, if you want to come on video, I don't mind because I trust you. I'm confident that I'm not going to have that kind of problem. I'll just put it that way. So if you want to come
physically
on video,
I'm not capable of doing what that person did. So.
well, yeah, that's at least not exactly in the same way. But if you want to come on video, I can let you on. Would you like to do video?
Um, sure. To be honest, I'm more concerned about my audio because like I've been told that my audio on my computer is a little there's a little bit of feedback. And for some reason, when I
It sounds
start the
okay to
video, it
me.
says no.
It sounds okay on my end, so I think it'll be fine. If it's yeah, I guess if there's a problem, we can troubleshoot it later, but it sounds fine to me right now.
Oh, great. So when I try to click the start video, it says you cannot start your video because the host has stopped it. I don't have an opinion about that. You do you.
Yeah, so now I have to recheck that box that says allow participants to start video, and I just did that. So now you should be able to turn your camera on.
Okay.
There you are.
Yeah, here we are.
Hello.
Um,
Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
just by the way, let me just say, so I'll probably do what I did for the last stream. So I think what's going to happen is YouTube is going to be processing this stream after it ends, and in order to avoid any problems like possible channel strikes, I don't know if they would do that, and they might just give you a warning the first time that something like that happens. But I don't think I even want to take a chance on that. So I think what I'm going to do is just edit the video like I did, re-upload it, and then it'll appear in the video section on my channel instead of the live section again. Just for anyone who's watching this stream later and wants to know what's going on. Okay, back to you, Megan. Go ahead.
sorry. Yeah, thanks again for having me on. I feel bad saying this. You know what Darwin was saying earlier about that they're grateful that the FDA is there to make sure the drugs are safe. Which is let me just say from the outset that I have no beef against Darwin. That's a very common attitude. That's a very common attitude, even among people who work with the FDA regularly. And I say this as someone who has worked with the FDA regularly for since about 2018. So I have a PhD in molecular biology. I've been working in biotech since I got my PhD and working in either diagnostics or therapeutics um, since about, like I said, 2018. So here's, Dan, if you're okay with it, I'll give maybe one or two anecdotes to kind of illustrate what I'm about to say. People
Yeah.
think that the FDA approves only those drugs that are safe and effective. They tend to be pretty good on the safety part of it. And for those who maybe don't know, when they vet safety, usually if it's a drug or a therapeutic, what they'll do is they'll do a phase 1, 2, 3 clinical trials. And phase 1 or phase 1, 2, if they want to combine them, especially if it's a rare disease, usually involves a handful of patients, maybe 8, maybe 20, kind of on that order. That's pretty expensive already. That's on the order of like $1 to $10 million, depending on how expensive it is to make the drug. So what they're trying to do is usually what they'll do for those phase 1, 2 clinical trials is they'll add their therapeutic to what is normally given to the patient as what is called the standard of care, right? Like you won't, if it's something where this patient usually gets a treatment, they won't take that patient off the treatment, right? Because they desperately need it. What they'll do is they'll add on the new therapeutic and see, A, does the patient feel worse? And, maybe they'll get some indication that the patient might feel better. Again, that depends on if it's phase 1, does the patient feel worse? Or phase 1, 2, does the patient feel the same as they do or better? That will give them some indication of efficacy. Sorry, I'm getting into the weeds a little bit. What I wanted to start with was that, people think that the FDA approves drugs that are safe and effective. And what I'm going to say is that not all effective drugs are approved by the FDA, and not all approved drugs are effective, as in the patient doesn't necessarily feel any better. So I can give a couple of examples with which I've been directly involved. So for me, I would say the most eye-opening case was when I worked for a company called Synlogic. And their whole job was to so I don't know, I think probably a lot of people don't know this, but when you hear the term E. coli, Escherichia coli, they think of this bacteria that makes you sick. Certain strains really do. But you have E. coli in your gut right now that makes vitamin K for you. You desperately need it. If you don't have it, you will not be okay. So there are definitely strains of E. coli that are really good for you. So Synlogic was trying to engineer a strain of E. coli that was really good for patients, to sort of remove nutrients that some patients can't deal with effectively. The most famous set of patients they were looking to help was PKU, phenylketonuria, patients who couldn't break down phenylalanine, which is one of 20 amino acids we have in our diet all of the time, right? So so when your baby is born, they do this genetic disease. They stick your little baby's foot. They get like a little bit of blood. Baby doesn't like it, but they've been through a rough time just then anyway. And they use those blood spots to test for a couple of genetic disorders. That if you diagnose right away, you can immediately, you can adjust your lifestyle to kind of help that baby develop as best they can. And one of them is PKU. PKU, like I said, phenylalanine is in your diet. It's especially prevalent in stuff like soda. So patients with PKU don't ever drink soda, but they can't eat a lot of protein generally. which is really tough, especially if they're young males. For example, like teenage males with PKU are always kind of have like the food fog, right? Like because they can't get enough protein, they always feel kind of hungry and they can't really focus. It's very hard for them to get through school. If they're in college, that's really difficult. Um, so the idea is that this E. coli that Synlogic was engineering would actually eat the phenylalanine that they were ingesting through their normal diet, um, so that they could have a little bit more protein without actually poisoning themselves. Does that make sense so far?
I'm sorry, I've been a bit distracted
That's
thinking
totally
about
fair.
um I was like vaguely following you for part of that, and I was actually glad you were on to talk while I was preoccupied with this other thing. So maybe you can just pretend like you're giving a lecture to the chat or something.
No,
Um,
I really, I
and
mean,
I was just looking at the chat a second ago also to see if there was any comments about what just happened, and I was wondering like should I just end the stream in case so anyone new who drops in doesn't have to be seeing that potentially if they like scroll back, or is it better to just keep going with it?
I
I'm
mean,
actually not
here's what like I don't mind. Like if you would just want to stop now, and restart
um
the stream. It's really
I think for now let's just keep going. Last time when this happened, I was able to get my mind off it, and like eventually I took a call after that which went on for like an hour. So there might just be some transition time that my brain needs to adjust. Um, but still, I'm not sure if we'd be better to reduce the chances of um, more people being exposed to this by just ending the stream now. Because if someone joins right now, they're not going to see it. But if they scroll back, maybe they will. Whereas, if I stop the stream now, um, what I could do is I could start a new stream. Maybe I should do that. Uh, and Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start a new stream. That'll be a first for my channel. Two streams on one day, and I can call it like part A and part B. And I'll private the video right after I stop this stream, so that way no one will be able to access it, even if they have the link. And then I'll start a new stream. If you want to come back, I definitely invite you to come back. It'll probably take maybe like 5 minutes to get a new stream going.
yeah, fair enough.
Um,
I mean, I don't know if this is of general interest. Like it
No,
really
I
breaks
think
my heart, but
I like having an expert on who can really get into these details, like someone who knows what's going on with the FDA. So I definitely appreciate it. But let me just stop this stream and then I'm going to restart it. And I think within like 5 minutes I should be back. So anyone who's out there, just go to my channel. I don't know if I'm going to put out links on Facebook or Twitter this time to announce it. But just hang around my channel and I should be back up at a new link in a few minutes. Okay, thanks everyone for coming by. See you soon.